What's up guys, I'm Carton, and in today's video I want to be talking about the AMP1 Mercury edition and basically getting some more AC/DC type inspired tones. So today you will see a lot of Solodallas also on this video, because you might know, you might not know, Mr. Phil Solodallas is the guy who started a company that basically his sole purpose is to capture the AC/DC tone and make it available to the public. Okay, so let's get started in this video. Let's start out with the signal chain. We'll talk a little bit about the stuff and then we'll get to the tones. Okay, so I have the Blue Guitar AMP1 here, the Mercury edition, because it sounds the closest to the amp that I'm using here. So we have that going on into a Fryette power station, because I wanted to have a real load, because I'm cranking the amp and it sounds more natural with a real load, and I'm using a little DI box to pad down the signal and to have a little ground lift for that. So yeah, that is going into there. That's going into Logic. The amp, which is a Solodallas SD50, which, if you don't know, that's a JTM50 amplifier, which allegedly Mr. Angus Young used this amplifier on Highway to Hell and on Back in Black to record a lot of his rhythm and lead stuff, also next to a super lead amplifier of some sort. And of course there are a few other Marshalls, but this was the main one pulling it off, according to Mr. Phil and Dries. So yeah, this one is hand built here in Belgium by Mr. Dries Pottevan. He is the engineer behind most of the later generation Solodallas gear. He has a really great ear for tone. He built this amp with NOS parts, which means it is with old mustard caps, pyro resistors, and he really went the whole extra mile to go all the way. So the faceplate here is also a vintage lacquered style faceplate with the right JTM logo. The switches are really nice little switches. If you look inside, it has the brown turret board. It has the correct style output transformer with the piece of metal around it. I'm not really that knowledgeable on amps as a technician, but if you look inside there, it's really like the old ones as much as possible. So this amp is really my favorite Marshall that I own, Marshall style amp, and as you can see, I do have a few. Dries also does all of my other amps. If I have a problem with an amp, or if I want him to dial something in, I always go to Dries. He's the only one I trust with my amps. So that's the Solodallas SD50. This little pedal here, you might know, you might not know, this is the Solodallas STORM. It's basically a pedal version of their Schaffer Replica. And a Schaffer Replica is basically a replica of the boost circuit that was built into the Schaffer wireless unit of the 70s. A lot of 70s guitarists used this wireless system, and they found out that they could use a little boost from this guy and that it made the amp even sound better. So this is really a tone secret and it sounds amazing. I really love this guy and I really enjoyed. Angus also used this one on the Highway to Hell Back in Black album and also some other albums, and he started to use even the replica since Rock or Bust and also on the new album. So this pedal sounds amazing, also designed by Dries. Amazing guy. This sounds great, this amp sounds great. And by the way, also using the IRs of Solodallas. I will put the links to all of the Solodallas gear in the description down below, so you can get it. By the way, this guitar is a 2011 Gibson SG Junior with a T-type humbucker in the bridge, so a T-top. So yeah, that's that. I do have this 61 reissue with Solodallas SD71 pickups, which sounds great. But for whatever reason, it's not staying in tune today, so I'm not using that, I'm using this. But we do have a correct pickup, the correct amps, and the Schaffer, so let's get going with the tones. Okay, so let's start out with the Solodallas. So yeah, that's the basic tone of the SD50. It's basically with the volume on about 6, which sounds great to me. I have the treble on full, mids on about 5, bass is on 2, and presence is all the way off. But to be fair with these old amps, the EQ doesn't really do a whole lot. So I'm basically just keeping the bass a little lower to keep a tight sound. But other than that, the other settings don't really do that much. You can put everything on 5 and this volume here on 6, and it's gonna sound pretty similar. That's with these old non-master volumes. The controls don't really do that much. That's something that I like better about the AMP1. So let's go on and compare the AMP1 Mercury vintage channel to this amp. So I've already got it dialed up pretty close in my opinion. So let's hear the amp once again. The deal with getting this tone with the AMP1? Well, I've got the gain between 5 and 6 because I've got it here on about 6. I've got the master here on, it's between 4 and 5, but I've got this master cranked. Then I've got the bass between 4, no, the bass is between, it's on 6 actually. The mids is between 8 and 9, and then the treble is on about, it's somewhere between 6 and 7. That's it. You don't have any custom controls, of course, on a vintage channel. It sounds great, and it sounds very similar to me to this amp. And you gotta keep in mind, this amp is hand built. It's a really expensive amp. It's about 3,200 euros if you want to buy an NOS version of this. It sounds great, but I think the sound is pretty much in this little box here. And another question that you might have is the Storm pedal. How does it sound with the amp, and how does it work with the AMP1? Is it the same or not? Because that's a question that a lot of guys will have. Is the transistor based stuff in here, is it capable of handling pedals? Let's check it out. So let's go from the Solodallas, and then we add the Storm, and then we'll do the same with the AMP1. By the way I have it at the moment, I can switch the pedal in with my switcher here, but I will put it off to make it easier for you guys. for you guys so that you can see if it's on or off. Okay, so this is the amp. This is the amp. So as you can hear, both the AMP1 and the SE50 sound pretty similar, but the one difference that I do notice is that when I'm using the boost here and I go above 9 o'clock, it sounds natural and it is pushing the amp in a nice way, but with the AMP1 it does start to become a little bit different. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, it just reacts a little bit different the higher I push it. But to be honest, the sweet spot for me with this one is boost on 10 and level on 9 o'clock. And that sounds about the same to me. I wouldn't go any higher on this one myself. So for me, this is actually perfect. I can use the AMP1 Mercury edition as my backup to this Solodallas SD50. And to be honest, it sounds pretty much the same. Let's compare it again. So I'm now on the AMP1. I will start out with the Solodallas STORM off and then I will edit. That's the only one downside with the AMP1. If you're cranking it at home and you're doing it with studio monitors, you will hear this fan really ramping up, but you know what, it's really worth it. I think for the price that these go for, it's way less than one of these heads, and you do get some extra sounds in here. You get some high gain, some low gain, even some metal stuff. You get the classic rock with it, so it's really nice. I hope this video explained some of the AC/DC tones. By the way, this pedal is amazing. I think it sounds great with AMP1. Again, how to use it: put the boost on 10, limiter to taste, but I set it at 0 at the moment. I usually don't go any higher than 9 o'clock on here. This has about 30 dB of boost, if I'm not mistaken. 30 dB is a lot of boost, and it can really get you into trouble, so that's why 9 o'clock is more than enough for me, especially with an already gainy amp. That's one of the problems that a lot of guys have, is that they put the level knob way too high and the boost too low, and then it will start to scream. So for example, if you put the boost low and this high, I don't know if you hear it, but it gets a screaming noise if you start to play that, so it's not really something that I would do. I like it like this. You can maybe put the level a little bit higher if you have an SD50 and it's really a nice sound. I don't think it is as good with the AMP1 if you start to crank it more than that, but I would never do it. So it's the same kind of sound, very similar to me, and it's an amazing sound. So yeah, AMP1 great for AC/DC tones as well. Hope you guys dig it.